Pick It Up Portland campaign. This has been going on now for some time. I've participated in 2 annual Pick It Up Portland events, and that's where we go out, we put on our uniform, and we get the little plastic picker-upper things, which, by the way, are highly addictive. If you're like me, you like to fidget. And we go out and we clean up the cigarette butts, we clean up the trash. Where needles are identified, we identify them, and people with proper training in picking up biohazards clean it up. And I always enjoy it because it's a very, very social event. So I hope you'll enjoy working either on the Pick It Up Portland initiative or the Keep It Pretty Rose City initiative as that develops starting in January. You may have also seen these guys before, but based on their success, the city has increased the number of Clean Start trucks zooming around our city. This is a program that's run by Central City Concern here in the community. It is supported by city dollars, and it provides mentoring work experience that fills the cleaning and maintenance needs of the city. So it takes people who are formerly homeless, who are looking for a clean start, who are looking for a shared opportunity to work together with other people who have the same lived experience and develop job training and leadership skills while also doing something that's of high value and high desire to the community. And this is a program that I strongly support, and you should look for future budgets from the City of Portland to work with Central City Concern to expand that programming opportunity. We've definitely seen a dramatic difference in the amount of waste that's on our streets. Since January of 2017, and I don't like to throw out a lot of statistics after 6 p.m., but I'm just going to throw a few out. Clean Start has cleaned up the following since January of 2017. 68,993 bags of trash. 36,971 needles. And 940,367 pounds of trash. That's astounding. Right? That is astounding. The program employs 26 people. Currently, it's trained 63 people. While we're committed, obviously, to trash cleanup and beautification initiatives, we're also working tirelessly to address a larger societal problem in our community, and that's the issue of homelessness. And I want to be crystal clear. There is no other issue that receives the same level of passion or the same sense of urgency from my team or from me than the issue of homelessness. You let me know that this is your primary issue. I hear it all the time, and I want you to know that the message is received. I know that homelessness is a great concern. It's a humanitarian crisis unfolding on our streets, and every single person on this stage and many, many others at the city, the county, in nonprofit organizations, at the state level, in the business community, at the neighborhood and local level, there are people all over this community who are tirelessly and passionately and urgently working on this issue. As most of you are aware, the city and the county created the Joint Office of Homeless Services. So we're close partners with the county on this because we have overlapping responsibilities. A very sensible decision was made to get together and work together. We have a strategy that is very straightforward. First of all, on the front end, we seek to prevent homelessness. We can identify those individuals and those families that are at the highest risk of becoming homeless. And we seek to keep them in their housing situation so that they do not end up on the streets. Second of all, we connect people on the streets with shelter. Chair Kafori and I and other members of the Multnomah County Commission. Just a few hours ago, we opened up one of our new winter emergency shelters. And the point was made at the shelter opening that shelters do not provide an end to homelessness, but they do provide an opportunity for transition from the streets, out of the elements, into a safe, warm, dry place where people can be connected to whatever services they need to get off and stay off the street. For some, it's job training. For others, it's domestic violence survivorship services. For others, it's youth services. For others, it's mental health services. For others still, it's addiction services or other services. And if we can get people off the streets and into those shelter situations, we know that we have the opportunity to stabilize them and get them whatever help they need to get off and stay off the streets. And of course, a big part of that is the work that the county does, and I know the chair will talk about this later, specifically around mental health and addiction services. And in our last point-in-time count, where we surveyed the homeless population in our community, a very large percentage, in fact, a record high percentage of those on our streets self-identified as having either issues related to mental health or addiction or both. So these services are tremendously important. And last but certainly not least is the transition into housing. Getting people into housing is the key to stabilization, the key to employment, the key to getting people into a consistent recovery methodology. And for housing can't just be housing, it has to be supportive housing. In other words, there are many people, and I'm sure you've even seen some in the Pearl District and elsewhere in the community, where you have a pretty good sense if you communicate or have a conversation or just notice somebody's actions, you may realize that simply providing them an apartment's not going to be enough. They also need ongoing services to help them be successful in that housing. We call that permanent housing. Through our investments, I'll give you a couple of more statistics. About 8,500 people were served in our shelters last year. 8,500. We found housing for 5,000 people who lived on our streets. So 5,000 people who were in fact homelessness in the city of Portland and in Multnomah County were moved from the streets into housing. An additional 6,000 people who were at high risk of becoming homeless received support services to keep them in the housing that they were in. So I just want you to be aware that while we're talking about these numbers and there's some success behind each and every one of those numbers, the reality is more people become homeless every year. So even though 5,000 moved off the streets into housing and 6,000 people were prevented from being homeless, that has not stopped the flow of people becoming homeless. And the last point I want to make here is while we talk a lot of numbers and a lot of statistics around homelessness, I want you to remember that we're talking about people. And each and every one of these individuals has a backstory. Each and every one of these people, if not at present, at some point had family members and people who cared about them in their lives. And we know from experience that people, no matter how dire the situation is for them on the streets, they can recover their lives. And they can be successful in housing. And they can, for many of them, become employed again, get their kids back, hold down a job, be part of the community. And there are probably people like that sitting in this audience tonight. People who used to be living on the streets, but who are now completely engaged in the community, and you may not even know that at some point in their past they actually lived for a time, or maybe even a long time, on the streets of this community. Chair Kafoury will tell you more about these outcomes. So I just want to end with this. I love this city. And while from time to time I may mutter Just like the rest of you. I want Portland to be a clean and livable and vibrant and economically successful community. And yes, I take it personally. I really believe in this community, and I want it to succeed. And I know that it can succeed and it will succeed because we have opportunities like this. This is not a common thing that you'll see in every city in America, where people will come in together to talk about how we can collectively solve these problems. We have an opportunity here. This is a good way for us to begin this conversation. Stan, again, I want to thank you for your leadership in the PDNA, for the continued great work that you do in this community. I look forward to listening, to learning, and to thinking about how we connect and work together on this. And I appreciate you taking the time with me and including me in this event tonight. So thank you all very much.
I just want to correct one of those many statistics that the mayor threw out there. So it's not 95 trash cans, it's 170. So I just want to remind everyone, you can pass your comment cards to the ushers at any time. And they will bring them up here, so we'll have it ready later for the Q&A. Thanks. So now I want to welcome from the Office of Community and Civic Life, formerly known as ONI, Office of Development, Director Sue Reed, Graffiti Program Coordinator Julia Graccioli, and Livability Coordinator Kenya Wilkes. So we have a block of time to clear down. So, Sue, thank you.
Right into the mic. Okay, thank you. So, hello again, everyone. My name is Sue Green. I serve as the Director of the Office of Community and Civic Life for the City of Portland. I'm here with my colleagues, but we all have our statements prepared separately, so please bear with us. Again, Stan and the Portland District Neighborhood Association, you'll be thanked many, many times, and it's well deserved for organizing this conversation and leading with the theme of communities and government working together. Such a generous invitation. Thank you for allowing us to be here with you. Many of you may know the Office of Community Civic Life, but for those who do not or have been introduced, the mission of the office is to promote a culture of civic engagement by connecting and supporting all Portlanders, working together and with their government to build inclusive, safe, and livable neighborhoods and communities. So your theme and our mission are very related. Tonight, I'm not going to speak to the mechanics of community engagement, but rather how a city bureau like ours connects Portlanders with their city government, and how and why those functions may evolve over time. So our bureau, which we refer to as Civic Life for short, connects Portlanders to their government in several ways. Currently, for example, we serve community members and visitors to the city and the county through our information and referral line. And while the whole world is going digital, we know that 1/3 of Portlanders actually prefer to still talk to somebody on the phone when they have a question about the city. And a recent survey reminds us that these individuals tend to be older, disabled, or have complex questions. So this reminds us that information and connection can sometimes be one and the same. We also serve entrepreneurs and business, big and small, through our liquor licensing, cannabis licensing, and graffiti abatement programs. And we often find that our good work in liquor licensing also generates work for us in our noise control program. Promoting civic engagement also requires that we invest in people, in the leadership of community members, and we do this through neighborhood associations such as yours, issue groups such as Portland United Against Hate, and groups led by specific communities such as youth, immigrants and refugees, and people with disabilities. So this setting is more than just a beautiful backdrop for our conversation. Its history also holds some important lessons for bureaus such as Civic Life. So I'm not going to pretend to be a historian. What I know about the Armory, I learned about from its website, but some of its history illustrates some important lessons for our own journey. So the first part of the story goes like this. This was native land before Portland and before its buildings and institutions. And there is a land acknowledgement on the Armory's website, and it humbly acknowledges that the Portland metropolitan area rests on the traditional village sites of many tribes who made their homes along the Columbia and Willamette rivers. In the 1890s, there were also fears of mob violence and class warfare, and there were anti-Chinese riots all up and down the Pacific coast. And in that context, this fortress-like annex was constructed in 1891, and the adjacent armory housed the Oregon National Guard. In the 1890s, there were a few other structures that could handle large crowds, so the armory almost immediately came to function as a public hall. It could fit 6,000